Now, a little trip down my sort of cottage garden herb container bed before I take my little greenhouse apart. And you can see there I have some Greek oregano, I have some parsley, which is a volunteer, and I have some fancy basil, along with some other little flowers, and I have rosemary. I stuck a kohlrabi in here. It has not formed the kohlrabi bulb thing yet. And some more Thai basil and some more flowers. And my 5-color silver beets and my pineapple weed, which I'm going to let that go to seed, and I'm going to sprinkle them around in the pots because that makes a very nice little smoothie additive. The 5-color silver beets, and come down the other side. You see some more oregano. That is a hops oregano. You can use it for flavoring, but it's not as strong as the other oreganos, but it's kind of a cool looking thing when it blooms. And I like the way the rosemary looks in among those other little flowers. Here's that sour orange that you've seen in the other videos. It has got some new growth on it finally, but being a genetic dwarf, it's not going to grow very fast. So this is going to still be a long and interesting observation with it. And back to my basils with the rosemary, and oh, I forgot to mention the tricolor sage. So then on the other side, I have once again the hops oregano, some seeds I am still starting. And this is interesting because it is more parsley. It just started growing in this pot, so I'm going to leave it there because it will make a good smoothie and salad additive. And my 2 temperate carnivorous plants, which are still doing well, and we'll see if we can get them through next winter. They do need a dormant period, but you can't really let them freeze, so I'll see if I make that little test. A quick look at some of the other deck planters, and the 2 basically vegetable planters. Now, my celery is flowering, so that is a good thing because I'm going to save the seeds and grow more celery. And we have lamb's quarters in there. That's another good salad and smoothie plant, so that has been allowed to stay. And a sunflower volunteer, which is not going to be so great as it gets bigger, but it will be interesting. I haven't pulled it out, so we'll see if I transplant it or leave it to bloom in the container. And my pomegranate tree, which I have done a pruning to open up the inside like you would any orchard tree. It's a miniature one. It will not grow full-size pomegranates. I have yet to get a pomegranate off it, but this year may be the year. And on to the planter that has my eggplants and the Marconi pepper in it, along with some other little flowers that I found at the same nursery and decided would look nice around their base. And I'm going to make there it is. Okay, we're going to make a film now of this front of the house. We have a big flannel mullein there. I didn't have to plant that, but we've got poppies coming, and all there was some I cheated. I got from a nursery, and I put some little annuals in. You can see a big catnip is in here. Well, actually, that's a small catnip, and there's a few other wild weeds. And we have a hanging basket. And my mimosa tree is starting to come nice. It didn't bloom this year. I'm going to see if it'll bloom next year. I don't know how old they have to be. And mine is going to stay in a pot. And we have a number of straw flowers and statice and some other annuals in here and some more catnip along the front. Yeah, and the straw flowers are over here. Now they do wilt every day about this time, or in the afternoon. It gets very hot in this space. So yes, things wilt here. And including the squash, the crookneck squash. And I have a crookneck squash over here that is behaving very differently from the other crookneck squash set. So that is interesting. This one's already getting little crookneck squashes on it. Trying to see. Come up a little. There we are. There's one. Back off. Maybe it'll focus. There. Little crookneck squashes in there. The main bed. My tomatoes are getting quite large. And I know I haven't staked them yet. And that's bed 1 and bed 2. And I don't think these tomatoes are budding yet, but bed 2 is my greens bed this year. And we have kale, and we have the red mustards, and some garlics that didn't get dug up, and I've got to get the scapes, and assorted herbs in here. And down at the end, there's the turnips. We're getting them for turnip greens, but because they're purple top turnips, we can also eat the turnips. And some, that's actually Swiss chard, not 5-color silver beets. And yes, there is some milkweed coming in here, but I'm going to allow just a few. And I will be harvesting the tops of them, because if you prepare them in a certain way, they are safe to eat. But I don't really recommend that to the general public. I have some sunflowers in there that volunteered, and some other herbs like lungwort and sage and things. And down here are the little beets that are still coming. They should get some rain tomorrow. And then down here, which need a lot of attention, bed 3 and 4. And bed 5 is in good shape. That's where my peppers are. And some more mustards. But my peppers, even my paprika peppers that I started from seed myself, are starting to bloom. I'll admit I do have some big Marconi peppers, and I cheated. And they, I think, look like one actually has a pepper on it. Isn't that cool? So I've got to water these and then recover them. I've been working on here. These are my zucchinis. There is supposed to be some parsnips in this area, but they don't seem to be coming yet. And I've got to weed that because there is a bunch of amaranth coming up in there that I don't want there. Then some eggplants and a couple of little cucumbers. And in here I have gladiolus, just because. Now we're up here on the rock, and things have been kind of slow up here. However, I do have one of my ornamental annual vines coming nicely. And the thing that is pretty cool up here is my peas. My snow peas, which are a particular variety, have started producing and doing beautifully. So I will be eating peas very shortly, along with the little squashes and the Sweet 100 tomatoes that I put up here have started blooming. And they don't take long once they bloom, because they're very small, probably more like grape tomatoes than cherries. So I actually have a few of them coming along up here. And over here, I'm trying to get some certain amaranth and another plant to grow. But last year, I did get one of the wild tomatoes from Cricket Hill to grow. And sure enough, there is, oh, and I do see some of my other plants coming now. That right there. Let's see if I can get him in the screen. There, that is a flower, that one right in the middle. So good, those are finally coming. And now where did I see? There is a couple of wild tomatoes sprouting in here. And you might say, oh, but they're so tiny, they will do nothing. But they really do grow very quickly. And I think they're hiding, because I did see them in here. So this is actually turning into a very great garden year. Ah, there's one right in here. There's too tiny right now. It's not really, there he is, right in the middle. Now that's a really tiny tomato, but they grow very fast. And by the end of the summer, he will have taken over this whole area. Now I have seen about 3 of them in here, which means that that is very good for having these little wild tomatoes. I'll have to show you more as they get, I found him. He's right over it's under a piece of grass. Not focusing on him. Up a little maybe. Not seeing him on the screen. So I'll have to show it to you when it gets bigger.